Hello. Hi. Are you here for Torocon? Because that's why I'm here. Let me introduce myself before we get into today's agenda. My name is Georgios and I'm the CEO of Toroblocks, one of the companies that is organizing this event that you are watching right now, along with MIT Sloan. And I'm super excited today about what we are going to present to you right now. Before we go to that, before we go to today's day and the agenda, let me tell you some things about Torocon. Torocon is an idea that came to us just briefly 2 months ago. So we did it right after we thought about it, because we are doers and that's what we do. That's what startups doing, and that's the mentality of being in a startup. You think and you do it. So today we are in the great pleasure to present to you an event that's going to be bigger the next time, even bigger the time after that, and it's going to grow with us and with you as well. So I want to welcome you to Torocon from all sides of the world. We have picked a time that is good for the US, for China, for Europe. We're in the middle, so I believe it's going to be convenient for everyone. I know you are joining for all over the world because we have your registrations already, and I'm pretty happy to present to you Torocon. So today we're going to start the day with an amazing interview with Jeff Goins, who is literally one of the best writers out there. He's a best-selling author. He's a ghostwriter. He runs a blog. He's teaching about writing and blogging and stuff. And he's an amazing guy. Sorry. And you know what? We're going to talk about something really, really simple. We're going to talk about the technology that's called a book and how this technology is going to evolve into the Web3 and Metaverse environment. It's going to be an amazing conversation full of golden nuggets about how you can run your business now and how you can transform that business to be ready for the future. Right after that, Sanita is going to join us, and she's going to talk about how you can make your presence online amazing and the customer experience you're offering top notch just by investing 15 minutes a day. So get ready for a really go and do stuff there. No theories, just golden nuggets that you can note down and start using as you go. And we're going to close the day with our secret guest. We have revealed her, the secret guest, this morning. So probably that Ali McPherson is going to be with us. And Ali she's a streamer, she's a gamer, she's a YouTuber, she's a blogger, she's literally a jack of all trades. And although she's very, very young, she has been around for quite a long time as a creator. She knows the ins and outs of the creator economy and the creator community. And she's going to talk about what issues do creators face in the Web2 environment and how Web3 is going to come and solve those issues. So it's going to be very, very interesting keynote presentation from her. And this will conclude the day. Of course, we have much more tomorrow coming. Tomorrow is the Metaverse Day. Today is the Creators Day. So stick with us because it's going to be an amazing day. It's going to be full of useful information, things you can actionably use into your business or into your online presence today. And we're going to hear how creators from different backgrounds and different for being with us today here at Torocon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, George.
Cool. Let's start right from the beginning in case somebody doesn't know who you are. Let me just tell us a bit about your story.
Sure. Yeah. I am a writer. For the past 10 years, I've taught online courses for writers. I've written 5 books. A couple of those have become international bestsellers. I write about creativity and business and sort of the intersection of making things and sort of personal discovery. So it's a mix of like self-help and creativity. I've been a creative person in one form or another my whole life. When I was a teenager, my dad taught me how to play guitar. I always dreamed of being in a rock band. I sort of got to realize that dream after college. I graduated and toured with the band for about a year. And then I moved to Nashville and started working in the nonprofit space where I learned about online marketing. And I did that for about 7 years. And I really got into blogging while I was working for a nonprofit organization. And I started blogging for myself, and I built an online audience and eventually became a published author. People asked me how I did what I did. So I started teaching people how to become full-time writers. And a couple of years ago, I started ghostwriting and shut down the education side of the writing business and focus now on writing and editing books for other people. And I run a creative agency where we work with thought leaders to turn their big ideas into best-selling books.
Wow, great journey. So the process was you started with blogging, and then you wrote your books and you became an author. Is that the way it goes?
Yeah, I started blogging, learned how to tell stories in a way that engaged an online audience. And yeah, and then from there it turned into writing books and teaching courses and doing live events and speaking and all of those things.
Cool. What is the process for someone to become a writer? Do you think it's something you have in you and you just let it out, or is it a way for me, for example, to become a writer? Is something that can be taught, and so I become one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. It's hard to want to be something that you don't have inside you. I'm sure I could learn how to be a plumber, but if there's nothing intrinsic in me that is interested in fixing a pipe or something, I think it's gonna be hard to find the motivation to be a plumber or a writer. So I would never tell somebody to just try to be a writer if they're not interested in it. But for many years, I struggled with the idea that I even was a writer. And I remember reading I think somebody tweeted at Anne Lamott, who's an author, and they said, how do I become a writer? And she said, if you write, you are a writer. Now go get better. And there's some truth to that. Being a writer is not a vocation that you've got to go to school for. You don't get a degree in it per se. You don't get a certificate that says professional writer. Some of the greatest authors in history were not English majors, and they weren't even necessarily that good at grammar. So to be a writer, I think is, in a sense, a calling. It's a thing that chooses you. It's not something that I would necessarily choose just as like a good job. It's something that I felt was a calling, a vocation, and at the same time, it's a skill, right? So like anything, it requires lots of practice and time. But if somebody wants to be a writer, they feel that calling on their lives, or they want to. Most of the people that I've worked with over the years, writing was a part of what they did. It wasn't all of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that good writing is always in demand. If you're a good writer, this is what my first boss told me. He says, if you're a good writer, you should never be without a job, because so many jobs involve really good writing. And if you can learn how to be a good writer, you can sell things, you can make money, you can persuade people, you can do a lot of things with the skill of writing. And so I've not always been a professional writer. I've done a lot of different things, worked in a bunch of different businesses and nonprofit organizations, and being able to be a good writer and a good communicator always helped. It gave me an edge. It allowed me to get ahead when other people, didn't have that same skill. So I'm grateful for it, and I use it in a lot of different capacities.
Sure. You mentioned before that while you were working at the nonprofit sector, you learned about marketing, and I have a feeling that changed the trajectory of what you did in terms of it helped you make writing a profession and make a
Yep.
living out of it. Is that how
Yep.
it went off?
Yeah. So I've been writing my whole life. I never would have called myself a writer. And I went to college. I had a double major in Spanish and religion, and then I
Spanish
graduated.
and religion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
2 degrees. And then I graduated college and I toured with a band. So, I was just like trying stuff. I was just chasing things that I was interested in. And while I was touring with the band, I would write a weekly blog post about what we were doing. And all of our friends and family members would read those blog posts and be like, wow, this is so interesting. And so when I moved to Nashville, I was looking for a job, sleeping on a friend's couch, and I got a job working part-time in a call center here in Nashville. And then I started applying for their jobs. I wanted to do something. I didn't know what. And I started working at this nonprofit. And when they hired me part-time. And the guy who hired me, he said, "Oh, you're a writer. We need more writers." And I was like, I am, and what he saw on my resume was that when I was in college, I was a writing tutor. I'd always been pretty good at writing. And so it was a way for me to make some money. And he said, "Oh, you're a writer." And so he hired me as a copywriter, and I didn't know anything about marketing. I thought marketing was evil. I was, this artist. And he said, read Seth Godin's blog, and that's a pretty good education in online marketing. And so I read everything that Seth wrote, and I learned from Seth that good marketing is about making worthy ideas spread. Marketing is the art of helping ideas spread, and it's easier to spread a good idea, or rather an interesting one, than it is to spread a boring one or a bad idea. And so my job was working with a bunch of international missionaries who were doing international relief and development work all over the world. And part of my job was to tell their stories. And so I was taking this skill of writing and storytelling, and I was running it through the lens of marketing. How do you tell a story or share an idea in a way that gets people's attention? And so, yeah, I eventually became the marketing director there. I built out a marketing team. And this job taught me how to share information in a way that was appealing to other people. And then, of course, I parlayed that into a career as a writer and as an author and as a teacher of other creative professionals.
Nice, nice. And when did the first and how did the first book publishing deal came about?
So I started blogging, and a book publisher contacted me, and they said, "Hey, have you ever thought about publishing a book?" And I was like, "Holy cow, that sounds awesome!" And they saw what I was doing. You asked before, how do you become a professional writer?
Did you
Uh,
have an audience by then? I mean,
yeah,
did you
I
have a
did.
big
I had
people?
probably an email list of 10,000 people. And if you want to make a living as an artist today, you've got to have a skill, and you've got to have a way of putting that skill in front of people in a way where they're going to connect with it. So building an online audience, having your own audience that you have access to and control the access to it, I think is essential. And that's what I built, not really knowing what I was doing, just writing every day, publishing it. People were showing up, reading it. And a publisher said, "Hey, we'd love to publish you." And I got a book advance of $6,000, which was like world-changing, life-changing money for me at the time. And it was my first book. And once I did that, I knew how to do it, and I could keep doing it after that.
So you're now in your fifth one, right?
I've written 5 books with my name on it, and I've written another probably 5 or 6 books for other people as a ghostwriter and collaborator.
Right. I read a book. I saw a book that you have published that says real artists don't starve.
Yes.
What's the premise of the book? And let's talk about that as
Sure.
well.
Yeah. So I've been making a living, full-time living off of my writing and creative work for the past 10 years. And when I wrote that book, I was every book is sort of an attempt to answer a question. And this question was, can you really make a living today as an artist, as a creative professional? And my observation is yes, not only can you do that, it's easier than it's ever been to make money off of your art, whatever that means to you. Could be photography, could be design, could be music, could be writing, could be poetry, could be visual art, whatever. And so the book is, if you're going to be a starving artist today, that is a choice, not a necessary condition of doing creative work. The opportunity to make a living off of creative work is available to so many people in so many different ways. If you can't find a way to make a living off of your work, then you're missing something. You're simply not trying hard enough, or you're believing a very old story, which is what the book is about. The story of the starving artist, the myth of the starving artist. And myths are stories that we use to make sense of our reality. Some myths, no myths are actually true. Some myths are true because we believe them, and other myths become true because we act as if they're true. You know, we bring them into existence. And what I found is the people who were starving, they're actual starving artists, believed that you had to starve to be a real artist. And I met plenty of other people and meet them every day, thriving creative professionals who simply reject that idea. They don't believe it. And as a result of what they believe, they found another path to success. So that was the challenge of the book, is there is no reason to starve today if you're an artist. And if you are, you're just missing something. And I wrote the book to help people understand the path to go from starving to successful.
All right. So in the book, will a creator find like practical steps of
Yeah.
what to follow and examples, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's hundreds of illustrations throughout history, including many modern day examples. My argument is many of the great artists that you think were broke and starving and suffering were not. They were at very least making a living wage. Van Gogh is an example of this. Vincent van Gogh wasn't starving. He was bankrolled by his brother. He made a living wage. And then you've got extreme examples of people like Michelangelo, who was the richest artist of the Renaissance, and not only was an exception to the rule, but created a new rule in the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, many artists after Michelangelo became incredibly wealthy as a result of him breaking that glass ceiling and demonstrating what was actually possible. And then, hundreds of modern day examples as well.
I see. So in your mind is that artists, like it's a fulfilling their own prophecy. They believe that in order to be creative, you need to starve. So it's a condition in order to create something of substance, right?
Yeah, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's exactly right. And the story of the starving artist is not a very old one. It came out in the late 19th century. There was a French writer named Henri Murger who wrote these scenes of the Bohemian life because he couldn't make it as a writer. And so he wrote a book telling all these short stories that eventually became the opera La Boheme, eventually became the musical Rent. It was all inspired by this book that he wrote, which is a series of short stories about struggling, starving artists living in Paris in the late 1800s. And as a result of this story, many people started believing in the whole bohemian ideal. And it's just a blip in the history of artists. It's a little sliver in all of creation, all of humanity, and we live as if it's true. We believe it's true. Like every artist, is going to struggle. And the fact is, what it means to be an artist is means so many different things. You know, I met people who were working at NASA who considered themselves artists. And so to be a creative person and to use your creativity in the world is incredibly valuable. And I argue that this old story that was just kind of a sliver in history of where people believe that artists had to struggle and suffer and starve as a result of their creative genius, and did because they believed that's what they had to do. That's not the whole story. It's not helpful. I suggest that we discard the unhelpful stories and adopt a new one, which is the story of the thriving artist, which anywhere you look, you can see examples of it today. There are people making money on TikTok, you know, like making tiny little videos, and you know, musicians who are now their own record companies, and artists and authors and people who are choosing themselves and finding a way to get their art in front of an audience and make a living off of it. It is not difficult to do these days. And it is certainly, it may not be easy, but it is easier than it has ever been.
Mhm. I've heard on another interview, I don't remember where you were hosted, but you talked about artists being stubborn sometimes,
Yes.
and that's something that makes them maybe a star, or not make it in the world.
Right.
Can you elaborate a bit on this?
Yes. Yeah, you have to be stubborn about the right things, but stubbornness is a skill. And when you learn how to harness your stubbornness, it becomes very, very powerful. One of the things that I've observed about most creative people is they're really picky about certain things, right? A good writer is picky about the right words. You know, a visual artist is picky about using the right colors. You know, a good photographer is picky about lighting. It is important to be stubborn about the right things, because stubborn leads to excellence. Being stubborn about the right things leads to excellence. Being stubborn about the wrong things leads to despair and failure and all kinds of frustration. And there's a great Jeff Bezos quote that he talked about how he grew Amazon, where he said one of their mantras was, we're stubborn on vision, flexible on details. Stubborn on vision, flexible on details. A good artist is stubborn on their vision of what they want to create with their work and with their life, and they're flexible in terms of how they get there. But when you flip that and you become stubborn on the details, you lose sight of the vision. Like, you can't have vision if you're focused, hyper-focused on all of the details. Now, you can focus on like one or two details, but to fixate, we all know people who hyper-fixate on one little thing, and they, you know, miss the forest for the trees, as it were. And if you want to have a good long life of creating many great things, you've got to get a vision for what you're ultimately wanting to create and stay stubbornly focused on that vision, and then, you know, let the chips fall where they may, meaning you'll have
There
some
are a lot of
success.
roads leading you there, right?
Yeah, you'll have some successes, you'll have some failures, you'll do some things that are big hits, and then you'll do some things that aren't, and you may take a job over here that doesn't make sense, but all of this is sort of getting you to where you want to go, and your job is to not lose sight of what that vision is, what you're ultimately trying to create with your life and with your work.
Do you consider all creators artists?
Yeah, I know that word creator is a big word today. A creator, in my mind, is just a modern day artist, you know, and an artist is somebody who has a vision for something new that they want to bring into the world, and they do it in hopes of transforming someone or something. You know, art is doing something new that changes other people or other things, hopefully in a positive way. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're making something and sharing it with the world in hopes of transforming it in some small or big way, that's art.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. So these days, an artist or a creator has to wear a lot of hats, different hats.
Yes.
What hats do you wear, you know, on a daily basis in order to run your business?
Right. I wear the hat of writer. That's, you know, I've done that my whole life, and so that's the easiest one to wear. I also wear that because I run an agency. My title is creative director. I'm kind of in charge of making all of our work as interesting as possible. I continue to wear the hat of marketer. It's my job to grow the business, make more money, reach new people. I've got about 20 years in online marketing now. But those are kind of the main ones. I guess I, wear the boss CEO hat as well, business owner. And, then there's all the husband, father, friend, all of those personal hats as well. But yeah, I think of my job, like I have too many jobs right now. I'm making things, I'm running things, and I'm sort of overseeing the work of other people. And I'm also out there selling things. But I've always worn these hats. I've always had to make stuff and then get other people to kind of help me make stuff and then get that work in front of new people. And when I'm in a good flow, I'm breaking up those activities in different parts of the day. When I'm not in a good flow, they're all kind of bleeding into each other and it feels like chaos.
Sure. You mentioned the marketeer hat. What does that include in a daily basis? I mean, do you use, of course, you will be using in social media, blogging. What else? How do you leverage marketing in order to bring people to see what you're doing?
Yeah, I think marketing is just controlled conversations around a particular topic. And so what I mean by that is people are going to talk about the work that you do one way or the other. Marketing is the act of sort of navigating and controlling those conversations in some way. So the main marketing that I do is I just talk to people. It might be a podcast, might be an interview like this. I might call some of our old clients and ask, if they've got any referrals, any recommendations for other people that could work with us. Writing an article, running a newsletter. These are all aspects of marketing. I think it was Austin Kleon who said, talking about the work is the work, meaning marketing is an aspect of what every artist does, whether they realize it or not. Getting people to talk about your work is marketing. And so I'm always thinking, how do I get people to talk about the work that we're doing? Well, we help people write books. And so one of the best ways we can do that is just do better work, write really good books and create a really great client experience for our clients. And then having conversations around that. So most of the marketing that I do is showing up on a podcast because I only need one or two people to hear it go, oh, I'd love to, get some help with my book, editing or writing or planning it. And just because of the nature of our work, we don't need a lot of customers in order to, make good money. So it's pretty organic. It's fairly informal. I do a podcast or two interview per week. And that's, and then we just stay in touch with our clients and try to, find ways to do better work so that people keep talking about it.
Nice. Since you mentioned the economics of what you do, uh, because I understood that you have a team that you support, you have people that working for you. So in terms of the economics, for example, how many clients do you need per year in order to be sustainable, to break even, or to have profits?
About 20. Yeah, 20 is a good number for us. We shoot for about 20 to 30 clients per year. We break projects down into kind of three buckets. We work on books. That's all we do. We have a team of writers and editors. And about a third of the projects we do are just book planning projects. You have an idea for a book and you want to just start writing it. We recommend don't start writing it, plan it, write a book plan. Or if you want to sell your book to a publisher, you're going to need a book proposal. But a book plan, book proposal, same thing, basically. A book plan is for yourself. The proposal is for the publisher. So we help people develop plans for their books so they know what they're aiming at. The other piece of it is we write the books or either write them with you or for you. And then there's the editing piece. We have a team of editors that will help authors finish their books. So we will do one of those pieces, two of those pieces, or all three. So we plan, write, and edit books. And yeah, about 20 clients a year is a good living where everybody's getting paid, myself included. We've got some profit, but we're still in startup phase, so we're still figuring things out.
Sure.
I've been a ghostwriter for I don't know, 3-4 years. And I've been doing the lion's share of our work. And now I'm trying to bring in other writers and train them and have a team of people. Because I do think that writing a book is a team effort. Even when I'm writing a book for myself, I'm working with a team of people. You know, there's a couple of editors. There's somebody who's helping me craft the vision of the book. The main thing that I'm trying to communicate with the work that we do at Fresh Complaint, which is the name of our agency, is books are not created by committees. That's too many people. It's not a committee process, but it is a collaborative process. It does take a team of a handful of individuals who know what they're doing to create a professional level book.
All right. You're stuck for some reason. Okay, you're back. Cool. Okay. So let's say I'm a client. What it takes for me to start? Do I need just a book idea? Do I need and could it be, for example, if I want to write a fiction book?
Yes.
Could you do that for me, or is it just a more practical, biographies and stuff that I can contribute?
Most of the books that we do are nonfiction. About 80% of them are nonfiction business and self-help books. The other 20% are memoir or something different. We are working on a business fable right now, so it's technically a novel. But you wouldn't hire us to write your novel. We're working on our first business fable, so it's technically a fictional story, but it's a business book. And we'll see how that goes. Those books are harder to write, I think. But memoir, self-help, personal development, any sort of nonfiction book would be our speed. We focus specifically on what I call big idea books. And my definition of that is any book or idea that challenges the assumptions of a particular audience. A big idea challenges the assumptions of your audience. So to begin, all you need is a big idea. And we hold your hand through that process. But my challenge to any client, this is a takeaway for anybody listening, is if you've got an idea for a book, make that idea as strong and as interesting as possible, because people forget or ignore good ideas. It's not enough to have a good idea. You need an interesting idea. And an interesting idea is any idea that challenges your audience's assumptions. So a little formula that we use is everybody thinks X about a particular topic. Let's say you wanted to write about cryptocurrency. Everybody thinks crypto is Bitcoin or whatever, right? Everybody thinks X, right? So that's the first part of the formula in order to have a big idea. But what's actually true is Y. That's the second half. So everybody thinks that cryptocurrency is, I don't know, about computers and technology. But the fact is, it's more about humanity than it is about money, whatever. But you would pick a subject, right? Something that you want to talk about or write about. And then you would make a long list of all the things that people assume are true about that particular topic. And then you would challenge it. You would pick one that you're going to challenge. Go, that's not true. So Real Artists Don't Starve, the last book that I wrote, I wanted to write a book about how to make a living as a creative professional. And I made a long list of things that most people believed about them. And it was like, well, what do most people believe? Oh, that you're going to starve. What has every musician, artist, writer heard since they were a kid? You better have a backup plan. You can't do that. You'll starve. And so I took that, head on. I go, no, real artists don't starve. And that was my argument. And now I needed to prove it. So we challenge our clients to be thinking about their big idea. And then we hold their hand through that process. But that's a good way to start. How would you fill in the blanks? Everybody thinks X about your particular topic, but what's actually true is Y, and you're going to challenge that assumption.
Cool. So there are formulas that help the customer and you to decide and to, it's a journey. Like it's a process.
It's a journey. Yeah. And I would, and if somebody comes to me and they don't have that big idea yet, we would encourage them to wait. It's okay to wait. The world doesn't need another book just because, you want to put your name on something. You need to be saying something that's never been said before. I don't want to just put more books out into the world. As a reader, I don't want more crap to sort of sift through. And so one of our only goal is to help authors put better books into the world for the sake of authors. Nobody wants to put another bad book into the world. Nobody wants to be known for writing a bad or mediocre or not that interesting of a book. And certainly for readers, nobody wants to read a boring book. So that's our mission, is to, no more boring books. There are now 10 times the amount of books being published every year as there were just a decade ago. So there's a tremendous amount of books because of self-publishing that are now out in the world. And, it's our mission to make those books better than they would otherwise be. And that begins not with better writing, but with a more interesting idea.
Super. I think that's the tagline on your website as well, right? Stop being boring.
Stop being boring. Yeah. It's not that hard.
It's not easy either. I mean,
it's not simple.
Yeah. You mentioned that say something that has never been said before. How easy is that?
How easy is it?
Yeah.
It's not as hard as people think.
Is it another assumption?
Yeah, I think it's a question of conversation. So when you're working on a book, I recommend that you don't tell everybody that you're working on a book. Don't even tell people necessarily what the book is about, but have conversations with friends and colleagues and people that you respect, and just kind of like float ideas by them. But don't tell them, hey, I'm writing a book. Tell me what you think about this idea. That's too much pressure, and people will lie to you, or they'll sugarcoat things, or they'll give you unhelpful advice. But if I go, hey, George, I'm working on a book about, I don't know, this, we'll use the crypto thing, right? We're working on a book about the state of cryptocurrency. Or I would say, I wouldn't say that. I would say, hey man, what do you think about this? I'm kind of wrestling with this idea. I think everybody thinks that crypto is about technology when really it's about humanity. And then you might go, oh, that's interesting. Or no, I don't think that's true. I think blah, 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 blah. And what you're really looking for is you're looking for resonance. So how hard is it to know that you have an interesting idea? It's not hard, but you got to get the ingredients right. And there's two sort of ingredients to that recipe. One is you've got to get people to agree with the assumption, right? So that's part one of the formula. Everybody thinks X. I've got to be able to go, hey, George, everybody thinks cryptocurrency is about technology. Don't you agree with that? And you go, oh yeah, totally. Okay, good. Now I've satisfied the first part of the formula. And now the second part is I'm going to challenge that assumption. You don't have to agree with that part, but you have to find it interesting. Meaning I go, everybody thinks that it's about technology when really it's more about humanity and our control over our assets or whatever. And you go, oh yeah, I never really thought about it like that. If we're having a conversation about an idea and I get to have that conversation over and over and over again, people aren't agreeing with me, but they're talking about it, I'm on to something. If they go, oh, okay, whatever, that sounds interesting, and you can tell they don't get it, you don't have it yet. And so I think authors rush into writing a book where they haven't clearly thought through the big idea. And it just, you can do that, but it makes the writing harder. The writing becomes much easier when you've got something that's visceral, that people are going to vehemently disagree with, or they're going to be on board with it, right? So big ideas like the 4-hour work week, that title in itself immediately challenges people's assumptions about how much they should be, working on a weekly basis. And, on and on it goes. I mean, we could talk about big ideas for a whole hour in itself, but that's how you have enough conversations with enough people where they don't know that you're talking about your book. They just think you're talking about an idea, and they're interested.
I see. What do you believe about ownership and copyright?
I don't know. I was thinking about that this morning when I was going for a walk, because, the concept of copyright is a new one. Traditionally, ideas were not owned. Stories could not be. Sorry?
Oh, you mean a new one? You mean relative to how long the humanity has been around?
Right. Copyright law started in what, like the 1850s or something, right? It's a new invention. And what I think is interesting is it's almost impossible to enforce, And there's all these lawsuits around songs, you know, that this melody is too close to that one, therefore this artist has to pay that artist a bunch of money. There is a part of me, the artist in me, actually thinks it's a bad way of sort of litigating and policing creative work, because the fact of the matter is, who knows where an idea comes from? Did it come from another person? Did it come from the collective unconscious? Do we know? That's hard. And for most of humanity, people have not owned ideas or stories. And for most of humanity, artists have been taken care of by their societies, right? They've had patrons, go back, you know, pre-Renaissance, pre-medieval times. You don't have rich people, rich benefactors paying for creative work. You have the community supporting the artist, going, this is an important piece of our culture, like a shaman or a priest. What this storyteller, sage, artist, what they're bringing to our culture, it's sacred. It's important. We want to protect it. But the work itself does belong to the people. It doesn't belong to the artist. So part of me believes that I don't own my ideas, that the best thing that could happen to my ideas and my words and my stories, that people would steal them, right? And then there's the entrepreneurial part of me that goes, hey, I need to make a buck. I need to take care of myself, this fearful part of me. So I think my job is to make a lot of work and put it out into the world and find a way to generate value from that work without being too picky about who might steal my ideas and not give me credit for it. It's not a thing that I'm particularly interested in. I would never say it's okay to steal somebody else's idea or somebody else's work. But I mean, like, you could Google most of my books and find free PDFs online of them. So that doesn't bother me. I don't care about a lot of people having free access to my ideas. You know, there's that old quote by Stuart Brand, who's, you know, said, information wants to be free. It's always going to find a way to be free. What I don't think is good is if some individual or corporation or entity takes the work of an individual creator and starts generating massive amounts of value off of that, when the artist or creator themselves, you know, they're struggling to, you know, feed themselves. So I think it's complicated. I don't know that I answered the question. I do think all the blockchain stuff is super interesting. And I think all ideas kind of want to be free, and art never belongs to a single person. It belongs to all of humanity or to nobody.
Makes sense, but you know, you mentioned a couple of things that are, I mean, because you know, copyright doesn't cover, for example, ideas.
Right.
It covers the expression of them, correct, of the ideas, the tangible form. So it's different, you know, to steal an idea you have, because I'm going to express it in a different way that you would.
Totally.
So it doesn't make any sense, anyways. But to steal a book and as my own or as a publisher or something, it's a different thing.
It is.
And I believe that maybe technology is about to solve that in, you know, making like a ownership by default something, or, you know, in the Web3 environment that we are getting into. But as you mentioned, is a pretty complicated space.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm fascinated by it. And, you know, I make a living off of ideas. And you're right, it's impossible to steal an idea, because it's like, oh, I had that idea. Well, so what? Who's to say? I have had ideas for books that I've sat on and haven't told anybody about it. And then 2 years later, that book gets published. I'm like, that was my idea, you know? And so it's one thing to have an idea. It's another thing to do something with it. And I don't know how it'll all shake out with Web3, and I don't totally understand everything that's happening. But I do think, you know, NFTs, that, you know, NFTs and books and artwork, and it'll be interesting. What'll be interesting is you'll know who the first person was to generate that expression. Like, we don't even know we misquote people all the time. We think Abraham Lincoln said this thing that he never said. And I do think that'll be interesting. And I do think there is something at an unconscious level that we all know. And humanity keeps sort of returning to itself. And we do that through stories, myth making, ideas. And even with copyright laws, you don't own a book or a song or a movie or a story forever. It eventually belongs to the people. And so I do think there is something at like an anthropological level that we understand we need art. We collectively need art. And we also need to support the artists who are bringing that to humanity. And we need to, more than paying the artists, we need to protect ourselves and each other from large entities that want to take one person's ideas or expression of idea and profit off of it at sort of the detriment of everybody else. I think that's what's interesting. And I think what, Web3 is sort of making possible, insofar as I understand it, which is we'll know who did it first, and will be protected from the likes of very large organizations that might want to, bully smaller groups of people, and they'll be protected. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you follow the trends on creator economy, and what do you believe of the current status of it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so much that I don't know. I have friends who are much more heavily invested in the NFT space. I watch it, and I mentioned crypto a couple of times, just because that's been interesting to me, and have invested in that and made good money off of it. And I remember in 2013, I was in a mastermind, and one of the guys in our group came to the group one day, and he's like talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and we thought he was crazy, and 9 years later, I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. And this dude retired, he's fine. But creator economy, yeah, sort of. I'm getting old, and I think we keep coming up with new words for old things, right? The creator economy is just, artists finding a new way to put work out into the world using digital technology. And what I think the creator economy is it's the same thing that blogging was, 10 years ago, which is creating stuff that markets itself, right? That is actually what I think we're talking about, is all art has an aspect of marketing to it, whether people realize it or not. You don't make a piece of art and stick it in a safe somewhere. You make a piece of art and put it on the wall, right? It has a way of bringing attention to itself. Pablo Picasso's first work was he painted a menu at a cafe in Barcelona. And he did it for free because he understood that if people see my work in a public place, they'll come find me and they'll come hire me. So I think in part, what the creator economy is it's an acknowledgement that lots of people are artists, and there's lots of ways to make art in the world and benefit from that, benefit other people and make a living off of it. That's interesting. But it's the same thing that Jim Henson was doing with his puppets, doing coffee commercials, back in the 1950s and 60s, is he was finding a way to do funny, interesting, creative work that was personally fulfilling and satisfying to him until it wasn't, and he had to go do something else and getting paid to do it, right? That's no different than like a YouTuber monetizing their YouTube channel with ads, right? Or selling merchandise or whatever. It's like, I've got your attention. I'm doing the thing that I want to do, and now I've got to connect it to commerce in some way. And I think that's interesting. But I also think it's not a new thing. It's a new expression of a very old thing. You go back to the Renaissance and artists were doing that.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of the aspects are old stories, but yeah, we keep adding new jargon on top of it to make it more interesting,
Yeah,
more marketing,
yeah. Nothing.
marketing wise. Yeah.
There's a historian guy named Will Durant who said nothing is new except arrangement. And so, we've heard, like there's nothing new under the sun, but it's like we're always rearranging, we're remixing, that old YouTube video, everything is a remix. We're rearranging the stuff that we've always had in new and interesting ways. And I think the conversation that art and money has, that they have with each other, it's a timeless conversation. Art doesn't live over here and money lives over there. They're always dancing with each other.
Mhm.
And that's a timeless dance, I think. And the creator economy is a new expression of that, where you don't have to go to a bank, to get a loan to go start your art business or whatever, and you don't have to sell out to some corporate entity or sponsor to make stuff that you believe in and make a living off of it. And so I just think it's a way for you to take more control of that dance that creative people have always had to figure out.
Do you believe people will keep reading books?
I don't know. I mean, the short answer is yeah. But I think that's the wrong question. I think the question is, will human beings keep finding ways to make meaning out of their existence? And of course they will. It's like the thing that human beings can't stop doing is we keep finding ways to make meaning. And we will use symbols to do that, because that's what a symbol does. A symbol is a proxy for meaning, right? It means something, right? So words are symbols. Pictures are symbols. They point to something. There's a great old quote about art. It says, art should never say, look at me. It should always say, look at this, right? Good art never says, look at me. It says, look at this. Good design, same thing. It's not self-referential. So, a book is a technology. And the book, as we understand it right now, is about 500 years old. Since the Gutenberg press, books have kind of looked a certain way. That was, we could start mass producing. But before that, you had scrolls, codexes, which were collections of pieces of paper, basically, that people wrote on. And at most, you're talking 2,000, 2,500 years. That's a piece of technology. But for all of humanity, for as far as we can tell, we've told stories and we've drawn pictures and we've created symbols as a way of trying to understand our own existence, right? Learning from the past, connecting to your place in the cosmos. So I think we will always do that. How we will do that, how we will express that meaning making, I think it'll evolve. I mean, if we ever get to a point where we're communicating through our minds without words, which is probably an inevitability,
Mhm.
we may not need books anymore, and that's okay. But I think for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue to have books as a way of recording the past, understanding our present, and making meaning out of the human experience. But maybe not forever.
Mhm. So it's about the content. It's not about the
Yeah,
medium that carries
it's
the
a
content, right?
technology. It's like saying, will we always have the internet? Probably not. But will we always have information? The internet is just a way to communicate information. Of course we will. Of course we'll. We are informational, mechanisms. DNA is information. It's stored in our cells. So human beings are made of information, and as a result, they're always going to find ways, I think, so insofar as we understand right now, always going to find ways to communicate that information with each other. How will we do that? Well, we'll just have to see.
Do you follow the metaverse and all those things happening in that area?
I'm aware of it. I'm not really following it.
Mhm. In terms of creativity, do you see books coming into that place, into that new existence, or is it something that will exist in a different way, like you said, communicating through minds, or maybe audiobooks, for example, are books, right?
Of course.
And and movies sometimes are books. I mean,
Yeah, there's that. I'm throwing out these random quotes, but I'm reminded of that old Henry Ford quote. If I gave people what they wanted, I would have built a faster horse. I think that's how we think of technology sometimes. We go, oh, we've got the metaverse, so like, how will books play into that? And again, I think that might not be quite the right question. It's hard to conceive like 19 I'm trying to like pre-internet, because I mean they were sort of experimenting with the internet like post World War II. And I'm trying to think like 200 years ago, before we had computers, nobody could have predicted a computer. Like they couldn't have said gonna go from an abacus to this. I mean, maybe somebody could have. I certainly couldn't have. And I think that's what we're talking about in the next 100, 150 years in terms of what technology will do for information. No average person could have imagined the internet. Now we can't live without it. And I think, a book is a really interesting piece of technology because it's so old that it's probably going to stick around for a long time. Things that have been around for a long time tend to stick around for a long time and not just get immediately replaced. It is more likely that we will replace the internet before we will replace a book. All that to say, I do think that technology is making the transference of information more interesting. And a book typically has been that. So, think about the metaverse. It's like, you might not write a book or read a book, but you might like be a book. You might live a book, you may have some way of experiencing a story instead of reading it or watching it or listening to it. And that sounds pretty cool.
That would be very interesting.
I know, like 40, I'm almost 40 years old. So when I was a kid, so 30 years ago, I read these choose your own adventure books, and that was fun. It was sort of like what if a book were a video game? And now it's like, what if you were really in it and experiencing it as if it were happening, and your options were not limited, like it wasn't turn to this page or turn to that, or choose between this outcome or that outcome, but you're not playing a video game. You're not experiencing somebody else's reality. You're creating it for yourself. You're writing a book that you get to participate in it as if you were one of the characters, and you are.
That would be great.
That seems like inevitable to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my fear, quote, is that because the new generation has no, we have a reference from the past. We know books. We know how it was without the internet. Right. The new generations are getting, are growing into a space where books don't exist almost. So I'm not sure they're going to look for them, in the future, because as something that is missing from the present.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we still have books. People still read. And I don't care. Like, I don't think a book is a sacred thing. I think it's a way to communicate information. And if we can effectively replace the function of books with technology, which a book is technology, with other technology, I think that's great. I think we're in a transition period, so it's hard to tell. Like I grew up, without the internet. You know what it was like before there was an internet, right? My kids don't know that, right? And I don't think that's necessarily dangerous. I just think it's interesting, and it's going to present its own set of challenges. And it's, I mean, we've experienced this before as a species where we've lost most of the relics of our culture. There's that book, how the Irish saved civilization, about how a bunch of Irish monks preserved a lot of ancient manuscripts from Western culture after the Roman Empire fell. There was a bunch of monks who were just writing this stuff down and keeping it in abbeys and churches. That's cool. I think that's an important function of civilization. What we're seeing with the internet right now that, I don't know, makes me sad, kind of annoys me, is like everybody's living for kind of the fast input block. They're going to listen to a podcast instead of read a book. They're going to watch a video instead of a movie or a documentary. They're going to scroll social media instead of reading a newspaper. And we are, I think, losing our capacity for depth, right? I don't listen to podcasts. I think podcasts are fine. I participate in them. But if I can listen to a book, like an audio book, or listen to even a 2 or 3 hour interview, I'll choose the book because it's a deeper, more immersive experience. Now, I think podcast interviews and things can be incredible sources of inspiration, but you want to go deep in a subject, read something that somebody spent 3 years writing and somebody spent, 6 months editing, I think what is missing in this transitional period in humanity is a deep experience of content, of information. And I think people will get tired. I think they're already getting tired of the fast paced nature of Web 2.0, right? Of the social web. It's just bam, 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 bam. You got to keep up with, this incessant feed. Human beings don't want that. They do want depth. They do want meaning, and they will only tolerate surface level stuff for so long. Ricky Gervais said this thing that I thought was really interesting a while ago. He's a famous atheist. He is famed for his atheism, and he loves science. And somebody said, he said, if you got rid of all of the religious texts in the world, 1,000 years from now, we wouldn't replicate them, wouldn't recreate the Bible, wouldn't, recreate the Quran or any of these ancient texts. Somebody wrote them and we revere them, but you couldn't reproduce them. They're not observable in nature, is what he was saying. Contrast that with all of the rules of science. Get rid of all of our books about science. 1,000 years now, even 100 years from now, we'll relearn these same things because that's how science works. That was his argument. That's a great argument. I don't agree with it. I think that if you got rid of all of the religious texts, all of the mystical literature, all of the philosophical works, all of the questions that humanity have had about life and itself, all of the information that we have about why we're here and what this is all about, you get rid of all of those. Would we have the Bible with the book of Leviticus? Well, probably not. But you would have some version of everything that we have right now that helps us make meaning of our own existence. I believe in myths. I believe in stories. I believe in this deeper way of understanding the world. And you see it happening even now. You saw it happen with the pandemic. What did people do? They started returning to nature. They started returning to creativity. They started returning to self-sufficiency. I'm not going back to the office. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to make my own way. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to cook sourdough bread, whatever. My point is,
So true.
I believe in humanity, and we keep finding our own way back home. And we're going to keep managing our own edges, and we're going to use technology to help us connect with these deeper questions. It is impossible to predict where we'll be 100 years or even 50 years from now, because it was impossible to predict this. And yet I'm optimistic about the whole thing. But I do think it's easy for old guys like us to watch all these kids, looking at their screens, or us looking at, our own screens and go, oh my gosh, what is the world going to be like, 30 years from now? And who knows? But I think 300 years from now, whatever maladies we've created will in many cases be corrected, and we'll be dealing with, our own set of challenges. But I'm a fan. It doesn't mean that humanity doesn't have their own periods of, dark ages. and what follows the Dark Ages is the Enlightenment, right? And so humanity keeps doing this, and I think it's fascinating. I'm not scared.
Cool. Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. Before we wrap this up, what's next for Jeff? What plans do you have?
Well, in spite of the fact that, who knows what's going to happen with books, I'm going to write another book. I haven't written a book for 5 years. 2020 was a challenging year for me, as it was for a lot of people. I went through a divorce, personal reinvention, handful of existential crises, and it's been a while, and so I write books first for myself and then for other people. And I have a thing that I want to say, at least to myself, and if somebody else wants to listen in on it, that would be great.
What is it going to be about?
I want to write a book about the self, about how your job here on earth is to not be a success or become famous. I tried those things. They work okay. It's for you to actually know and understand yourself, to run your own race, to go your own way. Most of my life, I thought there was a way to get it right. And there isn't one way to get it right. But there's one way to get it wrong, which is to try to walk somebody else's path. And I've experienced tremendous freedom and joy as a result of going, I don't have to be George. George has to be George. I got to be Jeff. I got to be me. And I will spend my whole life trying to figure that out. And this past season, a lot of things in my life burned down. And I realized no matter what, I'm always stuck with me. So I better figure that out.
Sounds like a very, very interesting book. So let's see when it comes about. And thank you again for your time, for being here at Torocon. And see you soon.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Welcome to Torocon. I'm Sunita Bedu and I'm a digital business coach. Today we are going to talk about how to build a powerful, meaningful and profitable online presence, spending just 15 minutes a day. But before we get into the depth of this talk and how to do it, let's talk about what exactly this means, what powerful means, what meaningful means, and what profitable means. So we are on the same page. Powerful means when you and your presence starts influencing people, when it starts challenging people's mindset and their thoughts, when you are capable of bringing a change. That's what powerful is when it comes to an online presence. Meaningful means when you start becoming useful for people, when you and people start seeing the worth of their time they spend reading you, watching you, listening to you. And profitable means when your presence starts making money for you, when it starts supporting your business, when it starts supporting your money goals. I will talk about what worked for me and thousands of my clients I have been coaching for the last 18 years. Since my childhood, I wanted to work less and I wanted to make a lot of money, and I figured what worked. So I'll just touch upon a couple of things that work and that make time as well as money for someone who can diligently work on certain aspects of marketing strategy and visibility. 3 activities we'll talk about, 3 action items that will lead us to building such a powerful presence. But even before that, let's talk about the rule of working less and making more money, and that is the rule of delegation. Delegation helps us make more time, make more space for us, to develop more strategies, to grow, to think, to reflect. Now, right after this, people usually ask me that, Sunita, delegation, hiring people means more cost. Indeed, there is cost. But when you start working on the things that you are genius at, that only you can do, the cost and the return of your time increases. And when you start delegating the grunt jobs to skilled people who are more capable of doing things, you get more space, you don't get exhausted, and your business starts showing up the results that you want to see, significant results. So remember, when you are a business owner, you can't and you should not do everything yourself. Remember this rule of delegation. If you feel that you want to get a lot done in a limited time, then you hire people, hire skilled people, so that you have multiple hands to get things done. The first action item is pick a social network of your relevance and pick 3 alternate days. You can pick Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for example. Now, in these 3 days and your fixed slot of 15 minutes, start engaging and interacting with your network. Whichever network you have chosen LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you have a network, you have a following, you have followers. Start interacting, start putting up meaningful comments, opinions on the conversations that you see, on the post that you are liking, the post that you are finding of great value. Congratulate people on their new jobs. Start contributing. Start being a great audience first before you want an active and engaging and encouraging audience. It is the time. So the first activity is to be a great audience. This will help you build not just the visibility, but a reputation, create a reputation for yourself. And this is showing up. Showing up doesn't mean, being visible doesn't mean that you start posting, that you only broadcast. Showing up means contributing as well, becoming a part of someone else's conversation. So the first activity is to engage with your network, to contribute to your network, to interact on their post. That is the first action item, first activity, first important activity. And remember, 15 minutes every day, consistently, long enough. These 3 things with every action item. 15 minutes, consistently, every day, long enough. Now the second action item. Use the remaining 3 days to create, to write, to record. Whatever comes easy, comfortable and convenient to you, do that. Be a creator for 15 minutes every day. Now, people usually ask me what can be done in just 15 minutes every day. Initially, a lot less, maybe even nothing. But when you are doing, when you have just 15 minutes, when you start practicing for 15 minutes consistently, you start creating, you get used to it. And smart things start coming up actually. Start with short things, start with short content. Another question that I usually get asked is short content or long content? What works better? Think of yourself as an audience. How often, how much, how many posts, long posts that you read? How often do you do that if you have this kind of limited time? Do you read so many long posts? Think of yourself as an audience. We don't read long posts too often, maybe one a day, max two. So start creating shorter content so you can start showing your audience what you are capable of, what kind of value you can deliver in the shortest possible time. And experiment with this 80% of short post and 20% long post. But the best bet, the best experiment is to start putting the shorter content first. See if the audience is engaging, watch the engagement, observe how people are interacting with your post, and maybe once in a while put a long post and observe the engagement on the long post as well. For 15 minutes, alternate days, consistently be a creator. It makes more sense to create short content consistently but useful content instead of putting up just something every day. Third action item, on a space where you are listing your offerings, your services, your products. On that space, it can be a website, it can be a blog, it can be an e-commerce store, it can be any web asset, but it has to belong to you. This is the place where decisions happen. Social media is used for visibility, for awareness, but ultimately this is the place where people come for validation, to know more about you without any interruption, without any distraction. This is the place where people will make decisions, where they will get to know more about your services, your offers, your products. So your website, your blog tells people everything about you. And the ultimate goal is to drive the audience, whether it is from social media, from events, from offline events, from online events, ultimately to your website where conversion can happen. So on such a simple space where the navigation is easy, where your services are explained, where whatever you are selling to make money is elaborated in a simple, nice manner. This is the third activity. Usually it is a one-time activity. You don't have to spend 15 minutes every day, but rather consider spending 15 minutes every week to watch your analytics, to see how this space is performing for you, how many people are coming, how you can improve it, how you can make the conversion better, how you can get more actions from your website visitors. So spend 15 minutes every week to watch this asset, to watch your website and see the analytics. Now when you know what 3 activities can help you create this kind of strong digital footprint and how these 15 minutes every day can get you focused and with a lot of practice consistently, how you can get the max done in these 15 minutes with the help, I want to answer some of the most frequently asked questions I get to support this. So the first question is, how much does this cost? The whole setup, the whole thing, how much does it cost? Make up your mind to invest initially on a website. It is a one-off cost that will cost you somewhere between $500 to $1,000. It can be a blog, it can be a website, and how expensive or what kind of investment it will be, that depends upon what exactly goes in your website. But usually a simple website or a blog will cost you somewhere between $500, and if you get a VA or an EA or a business assistant to support you and to delegate, it will cost you somewhere between $200 to $400 every month. So this is the investment that you make, and don't worry about this investment because the returns on this investment are really, really high, up to 50 or 500%. great returns you will expect. So don't worry, don't hesitate to make this investment once you make up your mind. The next question is, how long does it take to start getting business, to start getting returns from this entire activity? Again, it depends upon what kind of industry and business you are in, and the pricing of your services, because the more premium ticket services you have, the more premium price services you have, it may take slightly longer than the lower priced services and products. So somewhere it can take you 3 months to 6 months to see the difference, and you can start getting leads. Third question is, can you skip the website part? No, you can't actually. The moment you get serious about your business, we can't skip having a website, because as I said, the ultimate decisions happen on the website. Ultimately, people remember you when they come to your website. They remember your brand when they see you, all about you. So you can't skip the website when you are serious about your business. Otherwise, you can test the waters, and if your business is going to work or not, just by social media marketing. But once you're confirmed, have the website or blog setup done. Another question is, for how long you have to do it? Forever. As long as your business is alive, you are alive, keep marketing yourself. The moment you stop marketing, someone else will take your place, because your competitors are probably just waiting when you're gonna stop. So this is not much of an investment. It is not going to take a lot of your time, but over time, just few minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes every day, let your people, let your teams handle it. You spend your best time to do it, and it has to be done on an ongoing basis, forever, always. So this is an ongoing job that you have to keep doing to keep getting the good results. However, you can take a break. When your website starts getting traffic from search, you can take some break, a break of say 1 month, 2 months, but I don't recommend longer breaks. So this is an ongoing activity. Another question, and the last question for this session is, what is it that you need to get started? You need a strategy to get started. You need an action plan to get started. This action plan you can do yourself. The simplest possible action plan, you can make it for yourself. Nobody knows about your business better than you. So you can, with a reading, with some tutorials, with some free social media strategy template, online marketing templates, you can make a action plan for yourself. But I recommend having a strategist, having a mentor, having a coach with yourself to just get you started. Once you get started, it is easy to take care of your business and your marketing. But start with hiring a strategist first and get started with an easy action plan. I have multiple businesses today. I have multiple niche blogs that are making good money independently, but everything comes down to a strong social media presence, a good simple blog or website, and 15 minutes every day consistently without any fail. Ultimately, it comes down to the minimum possible things. You can make money and you can have equally good amount of free time to live the life of your dreams only when you have minimum possible assets to manage, so you can maximize the returns and you can enjoy your life, you can have more time. So have these minimum assets, and not to forget, I have help, I delegate. Start delegating, start making more time for yourself. Remember that you're an entrepreneur. And with this, thank you so much for being such an amazing audience. If you have any questions, please drop these questions and Torocon team will make sure that I give you all the answers, or you can simply reach out to me directly at hello@sunitabitu.com. Wish you all the best for building a profitable online presence and a super successful new year ahead.
Right now, there are 50 million people who consider themselves creators. After a decade of watching YouTubers, Instagram influencers, and Twitch streamers earn a lucrative living doing what they love, it's no wonder that kids today would rather grow up to be a creator, or like a YouTuber, instead of an astronaut. Hi, my name is Ali, and I, like those 50 million other people, am a creator. And I've been a professional creator for about 6 years at this point, live streaming video games on Twitch, creating a YouTube channel, doing social media, and most recently fostering a community around my social token, AliCoin. In this video, we're going to help you understand what being a creator really even means and how an entire economy was built around supporting creators. And then we'll take a look at some of the major flaws in this creator economy and how Web3 can actually help solve some of those issues. And then we'll end with a glimpse into the future of the creator economy. All right, let's start with the basics. What is a creator? Now, this might seem simple, but it's actually a little bit more complex than you might think. So most of us think of creators as media producing personalities, like YouTubers, Twitch streamers, social media influencers, that kind of thing. But creators are actually a lot more diverse than that. Creators are people who generate experiences that bring together communities of like-minded people. And the mediums at which they bring people together doesn't necessarily need to be video. It could be music, art, photography, social events, text. It could be anything really. And it doesn't have to be online either. However, virtual experiences generally are more effective when bringing people together because it means that the communities are not bound by geographical region or by physical ability. Creators can be amateurs, hobbyists, or of course, professionals. And fortunately, there are fans of those creators that are willing to pay for the content, products, community interactions, or anything exclusive that's offered by said creator. And from that, sponsors are then willing to pay for access to that creator's community. And then in turn, creators are willing to pay, work for, or partner for access to those new potential fans or sponsorships. And this whole web of interactions created an entirely new economy called the creator economy. In order to succeed professionally as a creator, you must become an entrepreneur, right? You got to become your own boss, your own CEO, and essentially do all of these different jobs that go into running a company by yourself, at least in the beginning before you see enough success to where you can hire other people and outsource help. And doing all of these different jobs, whether it's like, you're the creator, the talent, the editor, doing the finances, the marketing, wearing all of these different hats can seemingly feel impossible. It can lead to burnout, and oftentimes the quality of the content can suffer because the creator is spreading themselves so thin, right? So in order to help mitigate that and help creators, there have been a whole bunch of other businesses that offer products and services to help them run their business. And this relationship between the creators and the businesses that help them make up the creator economy. Some say the true birthday of the creator economy was in December of 2007. This was when YouTube started sharing its advertising revenue with creators. This was really the first time that people sat back and realized, wow, I could actually upload content to the internet and get paid for this. And that really changed everything. Later, we saw Instagram influencers get paid to advertise products and services to the gram. And then we saw Twitch really roll out the full-fledged partnership program, right? You became a partner on Twitch, you got your subscriber button, and from that, you were really able to make solid revenue from that. And then later, in the platform wars, at least with live streaming, YouTube, Mixer, Facebook, Twitch, they started offering exclusivity deals where, if you stream a certain amount of hours on our platform and run a certain amount of ads, you'll get extra money beyond your subscriptions. And that was huge for creators as well, because that really kickstarts, running your business, having that stability in the finances to flourish as a creator. Today, each of these massive content platforms, as well as some of the newer ones like TikTok, strive to be one-stop shops for creators. They want to offer all these different solutions to keep the creators on their platform, to keep creating on their platform, I guess I should say. That's why we've seen Instagram steal stories from Snapchat, or the short form content like Reels and now YouTube Shorts. We've seen Twitter try their hand at stories, get rid of stories, and now they're all in on the Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, right? They want to offer all of these different things to have the creators stick with them. And in return, they ask for certain commitments. And many of these commitments seem pretty reasonable at first glance. But the reality is that some of these commitments can actually be pretty detrimental to the creator, to their career, to their mental health, and even to the community, the creators' community of fans. In recent years, algorithms for suggesting content to viewers on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and other massive content platforms favor creators who produce a ton of content. So the amount of streaming hours or video uploads required to stay in the spotlight and therefore, of course, maintain your income has led to something that we call creator burnout, which is a major mental health crisis that affects a lot of creators today. There are third-party companies that have come to the rescue with solutions that offer quality over quantity, but have unfortunately been blocked by a new challenge, and that is community ownership. Creators are starting to realize that they're essentially just renting their audiences from these massive content platforms, therefore making it very difficult to transition or take the following that they've built for years to something else that they find more ethical or more lucrative, or simply something that just works better for them. So now we've got hundreds of thousands of creators stuck in these massive content platforms, enslaved to the suggestion algorithms, and subject to the rule changes of the platform that they really don't have any power to influence at all. An example of this community ownership dilemma, just from personal experience, I remember when Ninja left Twitch to take a deal with Mixer, Twitch started promoting other channels on Ninja's live stream. And Ninja obviously had a ton of backlash on that, saying that these millions of followers, they're mine, I built them. And Twitch, essentially is like, well, no, they're actually our followers. So that's an interesting dynamic that really makes us think, is like, who owns these followers? And it's a major problem that we're seeing today. Creators have risen up time and time again in response to these platforms. We first saw it in 2015 with Vine, when Vine refused to prioritize content monetization. We then saw it again in 2017 when people boycotted YouTube and their poor advertising methods and policies, an event commonly referred to as the adpocalypse, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. This actually happened on 4 separate occasions. And more recently, in 2021, there was the huge backlash with OnlyFans when they made changes to their policies. The community and the creators fought back so aggressively that they essentially reverted the changes almost immediately. Throughout 2021, in hopes of easing creator distrust, a lot of these platforms came out with the narrative that they would be shifting their focus to prioritizing creators and putting them first. Some of them even launched creator funds in the hundreds of millions of dollars with vows to support these creators. Some of these funds have not yet resulted in sustainable solutions, so some speculate that this may have been a tactic to silence disgruntled creators and even attract thousands of new ones, a phenomenon called creator washing. Truthfully, many of these platforms really have gotten a lot better with how they've treated their content creators over the years. But no matter how lucrative and well-designed these partnership programs become, these platforms will essentially always be walled gardens. They may offer wonderful opportunities for creators and their communities, but if a creator cannot leave the platform without ditching a very significant portion of their community, which is their lifeblood as a creator, then creators will never reach the career sustainability and the mental wellness that they deserve. Fortunately, the Web3 world does offer solutions to these problems that could result in more democratized opportunity and community ownership than was ever possible before. Very quickly, I'd like to go over the 3 generations of the internet: Web 1, Web 2.0, and Web 3. Web 1 was static and read-only, like a basic website. And Web 2.0 introduced dynamic pages that could be interacted with. This led to things like social media and these content platforms that we've been talking about. And Web 3 is a decentralized internet. Now, there are probably many attributes that I could talk about in terms of Web 3, but today I want to focus on 3 different things that I think could really help create solutions in the creator economy. And that would be DAOs, tokenized economies, and interoperability. DAOs are decentralized autonomous organizations, or in more simple words, they're online communities of people that collectively own, manage, and contribute to a particular solution or product. The difference between DAOs and most traditional organization is that there is no central leader, hence the term decentralized. Any type of business in Web3 can operate as a DAO, including content platforms. Creators and even their fans can actually take ownership in the content platforms. They can help define the rules, and they could even vote on each decision that the business makes. Imagine the transparency, equitable opportunity, and true democracy that really could come about by these platforms being organized as DAOs. For the first time, these platforms could be creator first without concerns about trust. They could be open to any creators all around the world with rules agreed upon by everyone and applied equally to everyone, enforced and moderated by a community that is incentivized by true ownership. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, that sounds great, but there's no way that YouTube, Facebook, or Meta, I should say, Twitter are going to completely restructure, these multi-billion-dollar companies into DAOs. And I hear you. But there was a time when I thought that Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube were the kings of social media, and there was no other platform that could pop up and become a major player. And then TikTok popped up and completely took the world by storm. So I do actually think that there is a world in the future where a decentralized social media site could actually dominate as quickly as something like TikTok did. That includes these rules that we're talking about. The next attribute of Web3 that I think will be really beneficial to creators is tokenized economies. So let me first explain the concept of tokenization. Tokenization is the process of issuing blockchain-based tokens that are stored and traded in the digital world. Tokens can be issued for all sorts of things, including real-world items. So that could be art, the certificate to your house, like a house deed, concert tickets, music files themselves. You can tokenize pretty much anything, including labor, and they can also be used to represent fragmented ownership in a particular community or business. And so when we apply this concept of tokenization to an ecosystem of products and services, that's when we get a tokenized economy. AliCoin, which is my community's social token, is an example of a tokenized economy. You can purchase AliCoin using other currencies, but you also can just earn it by participating in my economy. So that could be earning Ali by winning some of my video game tournaments that I put on, or helping with moderation, or I've just given away Ali for various things like giveaways. There are ways to earn it by participating in my economy. Like Ali, most other tokens can just be purchased by using other currencies, but the most valuable use of these tokens is as a form of compensation for valuable community engagement. So let me give you a few examples here. Say you have your favorite content creator and you decide to share one of their new YouTube videos with your friends and family. And as thanks for that valuable engagement, the creator issues you some of their tokens. Or let's use a live streaming example with my moderators, right? I have moderators that help keep out the riffraff when I'm live streaming on Twitch. And as a thanks for contributing, I could just give them cash, or I could give them Ali, which really represents ownership in the community and my economy. In many cases, these tokens enable participation in DAOs, which means you could be earning real economic value, all while improving your online experience. For creators like me, a tokenized economy means that we get to earn a lucrative living doing what we love, as our interests as well as our community's interests change over time. It means that we can distribute some of the responsibility or labor to some of our biggest supporters and fans to hopefully mitigate that creator burnout that we talked about, so we have better mental health, as well as freeing up some of that mental space to enhance our creativity. The result should be better quality content, more diverse, and maybe even more lucrative revenue streams, as well as immersive community experiences. Now moving on to the third attribute of Web3 that I find really promising for creators, and that is interoperability. It's quite a mouthful of a word, so let's break it down. Inter means between, oper means work, and ability, well, we probably should know what ability means, but the means to do something, I guess what you're capable of. So if we break this down for Web3, it means the ability for things to work across different settings. In Web2, if you follow me on Instagram, you don't also follow me on YouTube, right? You have to go separately to YouTube and follow me there. So imagine if every account you created, currency, item, or title that you earned could be instantly functional as you hopped across different online ecosystems, including content platforms. This is what the interoperability of Web3 can enable us to do. It's really cool. As we move through different products and services within the creator economy, we can take our communities with us. No longer will us creators be stuck behind these massive barriers that exist on the major platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. We can simply choose the best solutions for our communities, and if for whatever reason something goes awry and that solution changes for the worse, we can jump to the best alternative and not worry about losing the following that we've built on these platforms for years and years. As a fan of a creator, the interoperability of Web3 means that you get to maintain your value and your status as you move through the various platforms that the creator might be on, which should allow for better user experience as well as more prideful interactions. And for token economies, interoperability means that you can earn on your favorite platform. Imagine how cool that would be to simply earn for utilizing the platform, watching the content, and then being able to take those rewards anywhere else online. Say you earn Ally by participating in one of my tournaments. And then you're able to take that Ally coin and use it for getting a new skin in your favorite video game, or investing in a DAO that you're excited about, or even something like paying your rent. I'm sure by now I've definitely got some of your wheels turning about what this future of Web3 could look like for creators and their communities. Now, I know that this all won't happen overnight. There's a lot that needs to be built, but for the sake of ending this video, and if you got this far, thank you, let's imagine what this future of the creator economy could look like. So, to review, we talked about the broad definition of what a creator is, and what benefits could happen from moving some of the Web 2.0 products and services that exist now in the creator economy over to Web3 alternatives. As fast and reliable internet becomes more globally accessible, creators from all over the world in every niche interest should be able to earn a living doing what they love. And those creators hopefully could earn that living not necessarily by having hundreds of thousands of YouTube subscribers, but by having 1,000 true fans, or potentially even less than that. And more than that, these creators really will, I think, be the leaders of our transition into the metaverse. And with the decentralized structure that DAOs provide, as well as the decentralized ownership, you could be leading the charge alongside us creators. With tokenized economies, by simply helping foster better experiences and contribute to online communities that we love, some of us may not even need to work jobs in the traditional sense that might make us unhappy, and instead earn by contributing to something that we really love. And because of the interoperability of Web3, we'll be able to take our valuables with us across various experiences and communities that should hopefully allow our relationships to deepen and thrive as we move through the metaverse and the real world as well. The future of the creator economy is really a collection of smaller creator economies. I see it as a happier world where we get to celebrate ingenuity, creativity, passion, and kindness, where everyone is on an even playing field that gets to participate and hopefully can succeed in a community of any size. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it this far, I hope it potentially taught you something that you didn't know about the creator economy or what creators go through, and hopefully inspired you about a future of what Web3 could look like for creators.